If you're a fan of samurai anime and manga, you should have heard something about the series called Afro Samurai. This series originally began as a doujinshi in an independent magazine called Now Now How, which was created by Takashi Okazaki. And at first, an anime was made based on this doujinshi. The main character was voiced by none other than Samuel L. Jackson. The anime ran for 5 episodes and was also released as a movie. Okazaki had to add mainstream elements for new audience in the anime. So when he saw Afro Samurai being animated and voiced for the first time, he felt like it had left his nest. So, to showcase his original Afro Samurai, he created a new relaunched version of this doujinshi, which was this manga. Manga contains stronger world building and settings. In this video, I am going to talk about the manga in particular, which only ran for 2 volumes. Afro Samurai is a story which has, of course, samurais and sword, lots of fighting and blood, but it also has binoculars, headphone wearing old geezers, mobile phones, robots, and DJs. Yeah, you heard it right. DJs which play songs in festivals. If you have not read this manga, then this is a spoiler warning for you. The story begins in Afro's childhood when his father, who possesses the number 1 headband, is killed in front of him by the bearer of number 2 headband. So in order to avenge his father, he seeks revenge. The numbers on the headband symbolizes that how strong the bearer of it is. The number 1 is the strongest man in the world, which makes him the god of this world, which makes Afro the second strongest in the world as he possesses the number 2 headband. Then later on in the manga, we are introduced to this group of 5 quintuplet monks living in Techisan, known as the MT7, which are after Afro to obtain his number 2 headband. The monks send out direct orders called red papers to all sorts of assassin group and put up a heavy reward on their targets to hunt them out. They do the same in search of Afro. While on Afro's journey to find number 1, we get to see his backstory, how he was found by a guy who took him in along with several other orphans and raised them and trained them. When Afro became an adult, he left the place to seek revenge on number 1. Blinded by the will to get revenge, he also commits several sins along his path, which includes killing the very man who took him in and raised him, his master who possessed the number 2 headband. Then from an unnamed character, whom we see quite often in the manga, tells Afro about Mount Sumeru, where he can find the number 1. On his way to Mount Sumeru, he faces the assassins set out to kill him by the MT7, as the only way to reach Mount Sumeru is through Techisan, the hideout of the MT7. After defeating the assassins and some members of the MT7, he becomes wounded and is rescued by a girl named Osachi, who is a follower of the One and is on a journey to spread his teachings along with some other followers. But this one guy turns out to be the same man who killed Afro's father. So Osachi tries to convince Afro to quit his hatred as the guy gave Osachi a new life. But blinded by his anger, he doesn't listen to her. So she tries to stop him by killing him. But Afro kills her instead. On his way to Mount Sumeru, he faces a man wearing a bear mask who turns out to be Inosuke, a person who was also rescued by Afro's master before him and once had considered Afro as his little brother, who now seeks revenge on Afro as he killed their master. But Afro turns out to be too strong for him and he dies by the hands of Afro. Then he reaches his final destination on the top of Mount Sumeru, the city called Bhava Agra, the city of gods, where he faces some robots called Afrodroids and makes his way into the room where he finds the number 1. As soon as he sees number 1, he runs towards him in rage, only to find out that he is already been dead. And thus he becomes the number 1. After some years, a young man comes in front of Afro and says that he had killed his father in front of him when he was only a little kid. So he has come to kill him, seeking revenge. But Afro, who has now seems to have lost his spirit, says to him that if he wants to kill him, then he can do so. But Afro kills the young man instead and laughs in madness. But then Afro accepts his fate of being the number 1 and a real life god and says that he will just keep moving forward. And the both volumes ends here. The story is pretty straightforward but lacks depth, but it still is enjoyable. Afro Samurai, if was handled right, with addition of some more background information about the headbands and the characters with some more volumes, it might have surpassed Samurai Champloo, in my opinion. If you have reached this mark, then please do like, share and subscribe. And I will see you in the next one.